Hello, everyone, and welcome to our episode number something of the Aftershow. I know we are covering episode number 6, which means we are on episode number 5 for
Yes.
us. But excited because we have some fresh faces here to talk with us. Josh, how are you today?
I'm doing really good. I just watched episode 6. I didn't get to watch it on Thursday, so I watched it yesterday, and so everything's really fresh. And I think I'm really excited to get to talk about it because it was crazy and wild and stressful. And I was literally sitting on the couch, like all of the anxiety just crept back up. But yeah, I think we have a good crew to talk with today, and I'm excited to get their perspectives because they're not necessarily people that I was super close with on a game level. So it'll be interesting to hear how they felt and what they saw and experienced. So it'll be a good show.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. All right, well, let's bring in our guests. We are talking with Matty, Jermin, and Korian today.
Hello.
Right.
Good morning.
Hello. Good morning. It is currently 1 p.m. EST. We're waking up. We're doing the thing.
Very much that. Very much that.
So how is everybody, Matty? I'll ask you first because I feel like we haven't actually had a chance to talk in so long. But how have you been since the show?
I've been doing well. So since we filmed the first season 5 of Ascendance, I actually shot my first live reality game that I hosted. So that's Destination Mole. You can find that on YouTube currently as well. But that's kind of what I've been doing. Working a lot, doing a little bit of traveling here and there. I'm actually heading out to Indianapolis this week, so I might catch up with Nicole at that point in time. We'll see.
Nice. And Jermin, how are you?
I'm doing well. Also, I've been good since the show. I've been traveling also, and just living life. Taking it one day at a time.
Traveling for work or traveling for fun?
Everything. I always travel.
Yeah. Awesome. And Korian, how are you doing?
I am alive and trying to thrive. That's where we're gonna go with. I'm alive and trying to thrive. Had a little bit of a career change, but things happen in that kind of nature. But working a wee bit, traveling, and just keeping going.
Awesome.
That's very relatable. Trying to thrive. I'm like, that's what we're all just trying to survive here.
Trying our best.
Till you make it, baby.
Yes.
Well, I did not get a chance to rewatch the episode. Usually that's my process. And so I watched it Thursday, which, it's only a couple days ago at this point, but I will be relying on you, Josh, for, jumping into it because I don't even remember where it starts.
Yeah, it starts with the captain's challenge, the first part, which I totally, honestly, this is not the first time it's happened. I totally forgot that we actually did that because I was thinking about it and I knew it was the safety chain, but I was like, how did we get started? Like, how did that even work? And then I saw, obviously, we had to rank each other. I don't know about you guys, but when they first sort of were like, okay, rank everybody like 1 to 13 and said it was called Don't Be Average, I was like, oh, it's probably going to be like to do with like where you put each other. Like, okay, so you've had, who has the most number 1s and who has the most, number 2 rankings and stuff like that but I didn't realize it was going to be like, you don't want to be in the middle. And then watching back and I put my own card right in the middle of my stack. And I was like, oh boy, that was probably a dumb idea. But we'll open the floor. Like, when you initially were doing those rankings, like, was there any strategy or what did you think the outcome of that ranking was going to be? Whoever wants to jump
in. Yeah. I mean, I guess I can give my thoughts first. So I didn't really know what to expect with that challenge, right? It's like, don't be average. That could mean any plethora of things, right? We know Ascendance likes to use play on words, so it could have been the complete opposite, right, of what we were actually doing. And I know that we had a very limited amount of time to do that challenge too, right? I think we had 2 minutes to put people in order or something along those lines. Like, it was a very short amount of time. So there wasn't a lot of time to process that information. So for me, it was like, fun. We're just gonna kind of throw people wherever, right? And my thought process was to put myself in the middle because I was thinking, right, like if it's something super bad at the top or if it's something super bad at the bottom. I don't want to be in either of those positions. So I wanted to be in the middle for that reason, right? And as we saw, like, didn't happen for me. But we can kind of talk about that later, I'm sure.
Yeah, I had a similar thought process. I guess the title went over my head because I was putting myself and the people that I was supposed to in the middle. Because I was like, I don't want to put people at the top. I don't want to put people at the bottom because I don't know if they're going to be good at the top or good at the bottom. So I was like, let's put people in the middle. And I put myself in the middle and some others. And that was probably a bad strategy.
I'm living. Going into it, I was like, don't be average. I was like, what on earth, like, could this, like, mean in a sense? I was like, is that a good thing? Is that, like, a bad thing? Because it's like, don't be, but, you know, maybe there's, like, some kind of advantage with it, but it's also a punishment. So I was like, gosh, I don't know how to go about this. But in the end, I was like, okay, I'll put, like, myself and people that I'm working with, like, up top, and then just, like, everybody else, like, at the bottom. Because I was like, maybe it's, like, one of those things of, like, if you're at the top, you're good. If you're at the bottom, you're good. And I was just like, you know what? 2 minutes is not long enough. We're just going to put people where we put people after that. I was like, you know what? You're just going to go where you go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for me, yeah, hearing don't be average, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to put myself at number one because, you know, I'm number one. And then my allies, I was like, I'm going to stack them at the bottom and the top, and I'm going to pray to RNGesus that, you know, that's going to mix things up enough with the other rankings that they're just not in the middle. They're going to be at the, you know, and yeah, I was very close to being average and I was afraid for my life.
So was I. I forgot
So,
that
like,
I was the eighth ranking there. And then I saw me and Oakley standing there and I was like, oh God, I forgot how close I was to being that middle position.
Yeah. No, and I was number 9. I was right after. So it's just like, ooh.
It was interesting watching because I was thinking back and I was like, okay, like I figured on just how the game was going at that point. I had been hearing a lot that people were starting to like, my name was starting to like come up in conversations and people were like, oh, Josh is starting to be seen as like this target. And so I think I put my heart in the middle because I'm like, people are going to either put me at the top because I had my really close allies, or people are going to be like, we want Josh out, so we're going to put him at the bottom. And so like, I was like, maybe if I put myself in the middle, that will average, you know, like even it out. But then again, I almost put myself, I think, right in that spot that Oakley ended up being in. Korian, did you expect it to be a safety chain, or like were you feeling when you found that out, like when you were being told the rankings?
Like being told, I was like, okay, maybe this is like, I was thinking like whoever's average is like automatically going to be like maybe like another like team captain or whatever. I was like, okay, so it's gonna be like the top, the middle, and then the bottom. That's gonna be like our 3 captains or whatever. It's like, okay, cool, that makes sense. But when they said it was a safety chain, I said, oh, fix it, Jesus. I was like, I don't know what is going to happen. Like, everybody's like, people are everywhere. I'm just like, if this is like the order of the safety chain, I feel okay. But, you know, I was not expecting like a safety chain at all. Like, zero. I was not expecting that to come in like at all. And when it did, I was just like, let the games begin, I guess. We'll see where everybody's like mindsets and like where people's like alliances and where they're lined up at. So I think it was like also a nice way to see like how people fit in with like other people within the game.
Mm-hmm. And of course, Ascendance like had to go and put their own cute little twist on, you know, the safety chain. It's never straightforward. Where we were handing, if you are safe, you're handing somebody the red band, so they're not safe, and then that not safe person is handing a green band to make somebody safe, so on and so forth. So, you know, if you're kind of trying to strategize, like on who you want in the safe group or the not safe group, or like, you know, anything like that, you're always looking 2 steps ahead of like, well, who's going to do that, and then who's going to maybe do that. And just the nature of the game of Ascendance, where, you know, things change every round. We're in a brand new round now. Whatever happened last round may not be applicable here, and so it's like all of these layers of you know, it was hard. It was really tough to navigate. I know I had a conversation with Lance in the cupboard little room because we were all like in and out really, really fast. And like in my mind, from my perspective, that is the worst conversation that I had in the entire game. And I was really nervous to see it on camera. But again, it's always worse than it sounds in your head. But I just walked out of that room saying, that was awful. I am getting the red band.
So you knew he was going to give it to you.
I was 97% sure. Yeah.
So I was actually expecting Duke to give me the red band, because what wasn't shown during that was that Duke and I were actually kind of talking about that, and Duke said that he was going to give me the red band. So I actually had kind of escaped through that for a hot second until it got to Julia, and then Julia took that upon herself for me. But yeah, I was not expecting it from Julia, but I was expecting it from Duke. So when it didn't happen, I was a little shook.
Yeah. Matty, I have a question for you, actually, because it's not something that I picked up on while it was happening, but watching it back. So when I'm giving my green band out after having received the red one, I give a little spiel of like, okay, it's somebody who's like whose name's kind of been floating out there, so I just want to give somebody like a break, was like my like excuse to like hand it to my alliance member Bergen. But as I'm saying that, your feet come down off the stool, and then you almost like look like you're about to like step forward. Did you think that was directed at you? I'm so curious.
No, so I don't think in that moment I thought it was directed at me. I think that I was just shuffling. But I was interested to see who it was that you were giving it to, right? Because I didn't know that Bergen was your alliance, right?
Yeah.
So what one of the other things that wasn't really shown, right, is that you and I had a really cool moment, kind of outside of the pool house, right? And so that I in that point in the game, I thought you and I were a little bit closer, so I was a little taken aback by that, but I wasn't surprised, right? Like it wasn't surprising in that respect. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So me and Matty, we were we were on the not safe team. Josh, Jermin, Korian, were you all safe?
Korian won the last part of the challenge. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Me and
technically,
Josh.
eventually.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll get to it.
Yeah. No, but I was, of course, initially not safe, and then I ended up giving, I think it was like 2 or like 3 people left. I think like once it got down to me, yeah, I gave the safety to Jermin. So
Okay.
Which was very like complex, because like I was like, I want to be in the not safe to help Korian in the vote, but also I want to be safe. So it was just
right.
Like, what was the dynamic of that? And I was like, I'd rather be safe, to be honest. But I was worried for Korian.
Okay, because they were trying to get me out of there, girl. They were trying to get rid of me.
Yeah.
I was like, they want me going bad. I was like, oh my gosh.
I was gonna say, I think that was a feeling I think a lot of us had, and I think you see that in like I had such a surreal experience watching that, because I knew that I was fighting hard for myself, but I felt like I came off very poorly in the episode, and like it just sort of hit me with this weight of like I should have handled that way better, but I definitely let like my own anxiety and my own fear like take over the actions that I had, because I feel like I did Julia dirty, I feel like I did Jermin dirty, I feel like I did so many people in that round really dirty, and I was like, obviously hindsight is crystal clear, right? So it's like I wish I would have taken a moment to like relax and step out and figure out what was best for me, because if I, maybe had played that a little differently and let Sky give somebody else like Jermin or Julia the safety and just sort of let the cards fall where they were, like maybe I get out of that round a little cleaner than I think I inevitably do. Did anybody else sort of have that kind of same feeling of like maybe they wish they played it a bit differently, or am I the only one?
I mean, I think for me, right, like at that point in time, like most of the people that I was working with in the game were either already chosen as safe or not safe. The last 2 people that I was working with at that point was Charlie and Dave. So I knew that in my head, one of them were going to get the ban, right? Because I needed to show this good favor to one of them. After having just voted together for the last vote, I needed to kind of continue that momentum and showing that integrity with them. And at that point, I had thought that Korian was working with Nia the previous vote, right? And had voted for me. So I knew that Korian was going to be my target for that vote, which was why I was like, Dave, if I give this to you, you have to make Korian unsafe. So that was the negotiation that he and I made.
I did love all of
Sorry
that.
about
People
it.
were like, I'm going to make you safe if you make this person unsafe. I was like, okay, strategies going on. So for me, throughout the round, I was getting annoyed because we had like 5 minutes to talk, and like for some reason I was always at the end of it, and I was just like, I need to get in the room, I need to talk to people, but I wasn't. As the round was going on, I wasn't able to get in all the time, so that was annoying. But I think eventually I was just like, you know what? Whatever happens, happens. If I'm safe or unsafe, and I'm just gonna rely on connections and the social game, because I was just like, that's just not enough. 4 minutes. Someone's in the room for like two of the 4 minutes, and it's like there's 14 of us that still need to talk to the person. So yeah, I did the best that I could during that round.
Yeah, ditto. It was like, I'll just piggybacking off of that. It was hard. Like, it was extremely hard. Like Jermin said, like trying to get in rooms and like seeing where you like rank up against people and how much time they're actually willing to devote and like talk to you and like offer deals and things of that nature. It was like so hard. I was like getting to the end. I was like, yep. Yes, it's definitely giving a competition for me. I was like, I'm okay with that. I have pretty much like gotten to that mindset of like, if I'm safe, I'm safe. But if not, you know what? Let's give them the best that I got. That's what it was giving, honestly.
Mm-hmm. And I had watched this episode with Sky and Charlie, and Charlie mentioned something at the very end of the safety chain, and I think it was down to you three. And Korian, you're like, do we really need time? Like, can we just make this decision? And Charlie was like, actually, yeah, can we maybe just like talk a little? But like they didn't show that. But I thought that was just really funny.
No, honestly, because I had already had my mindset. I was like, let's go ahead and do this. And everybody was like, well, how about we just, I was like, okay, I'm just like the politicking, here it comes. I was like, no, I need to stick with my gut. I'm listening to everybody, but it's like in the end, I'm like, I know what I'm going to do, and I'm just going to like do the best that I can do. So
yeah. Me as like one of the, like, I think I was like the second unsafe person, or like maybe the first, I don't know. I'm not sure, but I know that I was in that room early as like the rest of the rounds were going on. And Sky had come down. Right. Yeah. And then Oakley was there. And then I know like the three of us, like as people started piling in, we kind of started to strategize, like, okay, this is kind of what's happening. That's who's here, who's gonna vote together. And I know for me, that was when I switched from, okay, targeting Oakley. I was like, I'm gonna get off that train. Let's see if we can like build something this round here. We'll start fresh, start new, and then like, you work with what you've got. And I'm in a room with Sky and Oakley, and we're deciding we're going to try to like work together this round. So the advantage, I guess, to being sent down early was having the chance to have those conversations. I don't know how helpful they ultimately end up being. Because things went sideways. But yeah. I don't know where I was going with that.
It is interesting that you bring up that perspective, because it's like, obviously now that everything's finished, we're rewatching this. Of course, it's only natural to just think of like all of the I should have or could have or would have done, this, that, the other thing differently. And so it's like, for me, like, especially I felt like at that point, from my own perspective, I was starting to lose ground. Like I was like, I should, if I had gone into that not safe room, maybe I could have built different and new connections, because everybody was starting to kind of really clock me for where my allegiances were. And I was trying to diversify and like get away from that narrative, but I wasn't able to ultimately. So like, does anybody else have those like moments of like, oh, I wish this had happened or that had happened? And obviously we can't change it, but it's just interesting watching it back of like having those realizations of, if this happened differently, I would have responded in this way, kind of thing. Just me? Okay.
No, I was kind of listening, but also trying to figure out where Korian went. Okay,
Yeah,
Korian's
I mean,
back.
I think I'm the opposite of you, Josh, because I was safe, but it's interesting because you said like, oh, you felt like if you were in the unsafe room that you were gonna be this really big target. I'm just curious as to why you felt that way, because I feel like you were really protected, like you were doing really well. Is that why? Because you were capting so much that you felt like, oh, people are gonna target you?
Yeah, so I was starting to get these comments from people like Bergen and I'm trying to remember who else was coming to me with these kinds of things, like Charlie. Like there were people who were coming to me and saying, hey, people are starting to say that you and Sky are this duo, that you're running the game and that you're winning captain a lot. And like even I think Lance had sort of started, making comments that picked me up on, oh, he's seeing me as a threat. And I felt it because I always play a more under the radar style of game, or at least I try to. And then I was also thrust out front because of all of these challenge wins and being involved in all of these votes. And so maybe it was my own paranoia, but people were also putting the bug in my ear of like, hey, Josh, people are saying your name. People are starting to see you as a really big threat because you keep winning all these challenges. And so, yes, I did have connections, but I felt like Oakley was starting to really come after me. And there were people who were like, I think it was my own paranoia amplified by the stress, amplified by people whispering in my ear. And so like, I do wish that I had sort of taken a moment to sort of try to filter through that paranoia, because I did have other relationships that I was trying to work on. And so maybe I wouldn't have been as big of a target in the not safe room, especially with like Sam and, if Sam and Sky are both there, then I do have a little bit of protection. But yeah, I think it's just like, that was my reality. That was my perception. And so that was my reality. And it really just like, I really wanted to be there. I really wanted to go far. And so I was like, I can't leave now. Like, this is not where my game like has to end. Yeah. So I think it was just a lot of pressure from a lot of different areas, but I definitely had people like whispering in my ear being like, people are coming after you. People are coming after you. So yeah, I think that's where it stemmed from, really.
Yeah, I saw that too, because I remember talking and seeing an episode with Sky, and I'm like, you're gonna give safety to Josh, like publicly? You're gonna show, like, you're already seen as a duo, kind of, so if you do this, it's not gonna be good. And I was trying to convince her, and she didn't give the safety to me, and I was like, okay, we see that, like, that's gonna be a problem later on, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things I wish maybe we had played a bit differently, of like, we should have used that perception of people are starting to pin us together, so let's separate, which is what I was trying to do a little bit at that point. But I think it was because you are all of a sudden dropped into this scenario of like, okay, you're doing safety chain, you have 5 minutes to make a decision, there's 13 people, you have to try to divide that time, and it sort of limits your ability to make those clear, concise decisions. Because it's just all of that pressure. And like, yeah, it's not a real, it's as real of a reality show as it can be. So it's like, it's really hard because you feel those authentic pressures. Yeah, so I don't know. So we get through the safety chain. We have our two groups. I know we had some really good conversations, and I'm not trying to like boast, because we were sitting there safe and we were able to relax a little bit. But Jermin,
nice.
What was that like?
I know,
nice.
I'm sorry, but it was really nice because the six of us who were there, who were safe, we had some really genuine like conversations, and we just kind of got to stop for a minute and talk about real life. And I felt like that really helped bond the cast. I don't know if you guys had the same kind of experiences while you were waiting for the rest of the not safe people to come in. But I remember
no, anxiety was high. Okay, like nobody had that conversation, baby. We were trying to see what this is so we can go.
Yeah, fill us in. We weren't there. Fill us in.
No, it was legit, just like working out kinks and like trying to see like what we can do to win and understand the challenge at first, because we were all just like, what? Like, I think they explained it to us like so many times. We were just like, so wait, if we do this, they're like, no, Start over. Okay, wait. So this is the practice one. No, that's the real one. Wait, it was a whole
I was
thing.
so
Okay.
confused by the challenge. I didn't get it. I did not get it. I would not have won.
I would not have either. I was watching it, and it took me until I think the third or the fourth round of watching it, and all of a sudden it clicked. I was like, "Oh, that's what they're trying to do." It was when I think the word was like pixie or something. It was a 4-letter word, and it was like, "Oh, the score of those words is 16." And there's 4 letters in that word, so it's 16 divided by 4 equals 4. And I was like, oh, that's what they've been trying to do this entire time. So I can't imagine being in that moment trying to figure out how to play that challenge.
The math was mathing. The math was mathing. It was, if you didn't see, like, we were down there for a while. Okay, 3. We were all, it was like, we were all just looking at it.
If anybody like took off really quickly, they said, fuck math. I'm going to take my chances that somebody else is going to be wrong. And I'm going to be there first, or like whatever, you know, the other way to do things that involves less braining.
Oh, yeah. I will say it was definitely easier towards the beginning of that challenge, though, right? Because you had more options to be correct. Yeah. So it kept getting harder as you were advancing. So the first game, there was only 1 incorrect answer, whereas the last round, right, there were like 5. So like there was a lot of leeway there. So you had more of a chance to do that at the beginning, to just say like, screw the math, like I'm going to take my chances, grab this random block, and pray that it's right. So it was definitely kind of that kind of built into things as well.
And then like the opposite of that strategy is like me take my time and maybe like hope to get the math right, and then like not get knocked out, or like somebody else get knocked out, but even on a good day and completely calm circumstances, it's still going to take me a minute to do the math. So like adding everything else on top of that, that was a rough one. But I will say though, very interesting competition. Like I think I liked how difficult it was in a sense, like not while I was playing it, but like I can appreciate it now that we're on the other side of it, just how, I don't know, it's kind of like a very well-rounded comp where it's testing you on a whole bunch of stuff. You got to run, you got to math, you got to
remember
letters, remember. Like, yeah. So it was very, very cool one.
Now, and that hill did not help. Oh, that hill did not help at all. Oh, that hill was the death. Oh, that hill was worse.
That hill, that challenge right there is where my ankle popped out. Remember I sent the photo in our Snapchat, right? Like that was where my ankle popped out, that I ended up in the getting it sprained. So yeah, like it sprung afterwards.
Oh
yeah.
So you had like a messed up ankle from that point forward?
So I didn't know it was sprained until afterwards. Like everything felt fine. Like I heard the pop like in my ankle.
Yeah.
But I couldn't. There was no difference. I couldn't tell a difference. But when I got back home, like that's when it started. It was intense. But I knew it was that hill and that challenge specifically because I remember it.
Now I'm assuming, did they give you like a key of like this tile equals this amount of points, or did they just hope that you all knew what the values in Scrabble? That confused me because I'm like, how the hell are you supposed to know what these are worth in Scrabble? But I'm like, I'm assuming they gave you a cheat sheet.
Yeah, so like it's hard to see like on camera, but with all of our clipboards, like we also have a paper with it that had everything. So you kind of like look at it while you're doing the math. And
note for the future, maybe give a little camera shot, like a graphic or something.
Yeah. Yeah. And then okay, just refresh my memory real quick. So we have like the group of Not Safe, the red armband group, competing in this for 1 additional person to earn safety. And then am I correct so far? Okay. And then all of the people with the green armbands plus you, Korian, who you end up winning safety here, right?
Yes.
Or no. Yes. Okay. Did you vote, or did you like you're safe and not voting?
Did I vote? I don't think
Korian ends up voting there.
Okay.
Oh,
you voted.
The other green armbands didn't vote.
Correct.
Okay, cool.
Which was interesting because I remember we were talking about it kind of briefly in the safe area when we're like, do you think we're all going to be voting? Like, I know I was kind of hoping that we would still get a vote because like, again, I had a few allies like in danger, and it was like, I want this chance to like help them. Was anybody else's like surprised that it was only the not safe half voting?
I mean, I was both thankful, right? Because anytime that you have a smaller pool of people, right, it's both harder and easier to manage, right? So if you're working with, you're considering the votes from the people that are safe as well, right? Like that's a whole nother cup of tea that you have to kind of sip upon, right? Because that's more conversations that you have to have. That's more, influence that you have to try to have in the game. So I thought that this was a small enough group to kind of spend enough time with everyone to have those effective conversations for what we had to kind of do for that round. So that was kind of my perspective of that situation. It was a rough one though. It was a rough one for sure.
Yeah, I just remember like speculating a whole bunch. Like I had my conspiracy theories, like as I usually do, but I never really kind of got like, I'm like, okay, no, this has got to be it, because I end up being wrong 90% of the time. So I was just like conspiring, but that's it. Who knows?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So voting this round. So I just made myself my little list there, but Matty, Sam, Jermin, Sky, Julia. Who am I missing?
I wasn't voting.
You weren't voting. Oh my gosh.
I wasn't voting, but I realized like, oh, I'm safe. I can still, strategize, talk, maybe put my little 2 cents in. And I was pushing for Sam and Sky to be targeted that round, because I'm like, okay, like I didn't know where Sam was in the game with me, and Sky just did this huge blindside with the Debbie vote, and I was like, I can't trust Sky, so I was just putting my little 2 cents in. So yeah, it was good to be safe and still have the ability to like, because when you're safe, that's when you really want to like try, because they can't come after me if I try. You know what I mean?
Which is
well.
Sorry, I was gonna say that got me in trouble because Lance kept coming after me because when I was all those times I was safe, was still involved in those conversations, and then he kept feeling and was getting pushed out of some of those conversations in the earlier episodes. And it was interesting to watch that back because he felt like I was pushing him out and I felt like I was trying to bring him in, and so we had this impasse of like, we ended up working it out and I think it was fine in the end, but we had this weird dynamic with this cast where whenever you were on a safe team, they wanted you to go and just be safe and chill, and then let the people who weren't safe being strategize. But I was trying to be involved in all of the conversations, like you said, Jermin, because I felt like I could push the things that I wanted without getting targeted. So it's interesting to hear that you were doing those same things in that round specifically, which I didn't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, even like just the way that they showed it, and just like that one conversation where you throw out Sky or me, I forget who you were talking to, but it just was so natural to Bergen.
Julia,
okay, it was just so like natural that like, because there's so much pushback and people being weird about, oh, you're not voting, why are you here, like all of that like, I don't know, it's just so smooth. I was like, oh yeah, Jermin was voting. Like even like right now in this very moment.
Wasn't voting, but I made sure, I think specifically I wanted to do like one-on-ones, because when you're safe and you try to go into the big groups, it's just like, why are you here? Can you exit because you're not voting? But I was like, okay, let me do like one-on-ones because it's more personal, and it's like, okay, I'd rather just try to influence one person or 2 people than try to be like involved in this big group dynamic.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I didn't want to ask Korian because I thought you won that challenge. You did win it, but you won because Charlie lost.
He would have lost regardless.
Wins a win.
He would have lost regardless.
Did you think that you had lost when he ran to the safe?
Honestly, well, the thing is like that last question was like a trick question. So it's one of those things of like, your options are getting smaller, but he was everybody was basically going for like the double zero tile. That's what all the like almost everybody was looking for at the end. So in my mind, I'm thinking like, okay, that's what he's going to go for. But because the answer was zero, you couldn't submit that tile because you would be wrong.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh gosh, I want to see what it's giving. I want to honestly see what it's giving. And then I see him like once like we get up and we lock in, like even before they came over and started going like over our answers, I knew that he was wrong. So I was like, you know, one of those things that like Matty had said earlier, like it's easier like later, it's easier early on where you can just like take a gamble. But with this one, like getting to the end, like you definitely had to like pay attention and actually try to remember those numbers, because he said I had one of those numbers wrong the first time. I said, well, thank God. like earlier, I was like, oh well. Well, my math was off. But you know, yeah, I definitely like thinking back at it, I was like, it's gonna be a 50-50 shot if he wins this, like, because he didn't stay and actually look at the answer. I was like, there's no way he could have picked it up in like 4 seconds. There's like zero way. So I was like, yeah, we're going to see what it's giving. But you know, in my heart, I was like, oh, please don't let it be me. Please don't let me be the one to lose this one. I did not need that, because I knew I would be going. Going to the house.
It just shows that like a lot of this game is a little bit of skill and a little bit of luck, because, you know, like it just, you know, you do your best, but sometimes the luck just doesn't fall you know, where you want it. So Charlie definitely got unlucky there, and you were able to capitalize on that.
We'd love to see it. We'd love to see it.
So
Yeah.
Korian, you felt like you were very much in danger there. So did you feel like once you got that safety, you're like, okay, now I'm going to take a step back and let everybody do what they're going to do? Or were you trying to be a driving force in that elimination vote?
No, I was just trying to see where everybody's heads is at. I was like, it ain't me this time, so I'm all right. But I was like, let me, you know, peer in, you know, listen a little bit, see what like people are thinking, you know, because I don't want to be like, you know, giving out wrong votes, and you know that's not where the house is going, or that's not where the majority is going. So I'm just like, let me like try to actually put my vote on like somewhere where they need it. So you know, I'm just listening to conversations and like seeing where aspects go and stuff like that. So you know, it was tough, but you know, we pulled through. We pulled through.
Now,
It was really, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
It was really cool to like watch this episode, because obviously I wasn't like involved in the vote really, so I didn't really know. I remember Sky going, but I didn't know like how did that happen? Like how did it land on Sky? But it was really cool to just see how things were going, you know, left and right, and Matty was talking to Oakley, and it just kind of spread, and like the four of them came together. I was like, oh my God, because Sky at this point, she was like covered, you know, like she was good, and I was like, how did Sky get out? It was just really nice to like as a viewer to sit back and see, because I was on the edge of my seat like, oh my gosh, here we go.
Yeah. And like even for me being a part of it all, because that wasn't somebody that I was willing to vote for, like I didn't even really fully get it until like after the fact, because I'm on a team where, okay, I'm not going to vote for Sky, I'm not going to vote for Julia, and I just have this newfound, you know, thing with Oakley that like if I try to push Oakley, I'm gonna just like everything that I just been saying for the past 45 minutes in that unsafe room, you know, goes out the window. And then Matty, I know, so you kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier. So before this, we had I don't know if it was the day before, maybe just like earlier in that same day, we had a conversation in the pool house, and like I felt like on a personal level, we were really like developing like a personal relationship in that way. And this always gets me in games, always, where I am a paranoid weirdo, and
we all are, right?
if I don't necessarily like, if I can't place you in the structure that I've made in my mind, that scares me, right? And so I like, we can get along great, but I'm like, but if I don't know where you are in the game though, like what does it really mean? But you know, I'm also not always great at communicating that. And so like I think that's why you had fallen onto my list of options of people I'd be willing to vote for. I'm like, okay, I know where all these people are at in the game. started having game convos with Oakley. Okay, so I'm like, it's got to be Matty or Charlie. So coming into like the strategy portion of this round, that's where my head was at. I'm curious who the early options were for you, Matty and Korian, like the names that were coming up. What did the start of the strategy round look like in terms of targets?
So for me, obviously, my going into strategy, I was trying to set myself up for this round, right? Like I was trying to set myself up with a vote for Korian because I knew Korian had voted against me last time, right? But what I didn't know at that point in time was Korian. I thought you led the charge on that, and it was actually Sam. Sam did that based off of the edit, right? So I was like, okay. So I apologize for that, Korian. My bad. But regardless, at that point in time, right, like that was my thought process. I thought Korian had led the charge in that, was trying to get me the last round. So I was like, oh no, like we're gonna cut this off before it happens, right? So I was like, okay, Dave, let's do this, right? And then you want safety. So then I had to think of something different. And at that point in time, like I had really good, I was working with Charlie through Dave, right? And kind of had that. So Charlie was off the table for me. I was working with Julia and AJ at that point in time, right? Because we were kind of working outside. This was kind of in some of the previous episodes that we've kind of seen a little bit. And then I was also working with Oakley, obviously with the mob, or so I thought, right? Working with Oakley for the mob. And then that left two options, right? Which was Korian and Sky. And Korian's safe. So my thought process was easy. Like, it's got to be Sky, and I'm going to do whatever it takes so it's Sky in this situation so I can protect my allies, protect myself, and still have a target for myself after this is all over. So that was kind of my thought process in this round as we were kind of looking through things.
Now, oh, sorry, go ahead, Corey.
Oh, no, go ahead, Josh. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask a follow-up question because we see in the edit that you and Oakley go to Julia and you start pushing this narrative of, well, Sky said your name. Now, because I just don't know, like, was that something you just made up or was it true? Like, did Sky like actually do that or were you just lying to her face?
Right.
So there's always a partial truth, right?
She didn't really say the name, right? She was just saying, oh, well, two people aren't in the room. That's all she said. She wasn't like, I'm targeting Julia.
So so I had a lot of fun this season because I would play on those partial truths, right? I did that for Gluck's vote, right? Like I never lied about Gluck's vote. Like we all knew that there was going, right? But I was the only one that said, oh no, Gluck, I heard your name, right? Or like, this is how it's going, right? Like I was the only one that was kind of boisterous enough to say that. You saw it again with this one, right? And then working with the Nia vote too, right? Like you saw kind of that. So have I been a quiet player up until this point? Absolutely. But have I set myself up for the end game? Maybe. Like we'll see, right? Like in terms of kind of the relationships that I've been able to build, how I've been able to kind of survive in that, right? So that's kind of what I was kind of thinking in that space, right? In kind of how is it going to continue to propel me forward through that? So that's kind of the path that I took with that.
And I think it's very powerful when, you know, if you're more on the quiet side, but you are, you know, under the radar building up those relationships that, you know, when you do say something or you make your stance known or have that opinion, it's just that much more impactful and people will listen more, I think. So like just the way that everything's kind of set up until this point, you know, Sky is very, very well insulated. And, you know, the fact that you see like they're just like a sliver and you're like, you know what, I'm going to exploit the crap out of that. And yeah, that's
so Sky didn't really
it's very impressive.
She didn't really say their names, did she? She just said that they were in the room.
That's what she insinuated. Yeah.
And so basically, from Sky's perspective, and I don't want to speak for her, but just having watched the episode back, so some of the things that we had talked about, like while like we're watching, oh my gosh, was the very first conversation that we see is like a room full of everybody, but Julia and Charlie, I believe. Yeah, Charlie was the other name, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so Sky was constantly trying to break up the big groups and like actively being like, okay, well, can we like separate? Can we like talk? Like, two, like one-on-one or like in groups of three, like whatever. And it was in that in that context that it was like Julia and Charlie aren't here, so like maybe we can, you know, separate. But it is so anyway. So I'm thinking of like 18 things and I just got to pick one because I'm going to just forget them all. But Julia, a big part of like Julia turning on the alliance also stems from that conversation. Kind of roundabout way to get back to what we were talking about, but that's the part that I didn't understand. And it was, oh my gosh, I'm losing my train of thought.
Are you talking about when Julia talks one-on-one with Sky? Because I feel like that's what.
Yeah.
I feel like the combination of Charlie was really pushing Julia to stick to the vote, but Julia was on the fence. She was like, I don't know, Matty could be tricking me right now and playing me. And then she goes to Sky and she says, Sky, did you really say this thing? And Sky's like, no, I wasn't even in that room. Yeah. And I think that did it. It was like,
I died.
And I had a conversation with Julia too, where she actually like took me aside and asked me, and like was very serious about it. And I think she was very much like contemplating, and I didn't help either because I did not remember being in a room where her name was said. And so I said like, no, like that never happened. And she has all these other people corroborating it. And like, I mean, I have no problem just being like, oh yeah, I was there. This is what happened, taken out of context. Like I'll just say it, like whatever it is that actually happened. But in the chaos of it all, I was like, that never happened. Like, Julie, what are you talking about? Like, why is this even an issue? Like, we are so good. Which sounds like a crock of shit coming from me after all of the other conversations. So yeah, anyways. So yeah, Matty, you get in there and you do the thing. How far into the round are we at the point where you feel like, okay, it's locked in, it's gonna happen?
So I think for this vote, right, like knowing that Korian was safe, I knew that the vote was probably going to come down to me or Oakley at this point. That's what I was thinking, like heading into it. So I'm like, I was already in self-preservation mode. Like I have to figure something out here, right? So I had to think what was the best strategy to kind of set that up, right? Set that move up. So right, bringing in the person that I'm closest with in the game at that point in time, right, which was Oakley, working through the mob made the most sense, right? So I pulled him in, shared that kind of conversation, and like, hey, like, what do you think about this? Like, if I can get Oakley on board, then I have momentum here, right? So that's kind of the approach that I took. Once we had Oakley, I knew that Charlie was going to be easy because Charlie was already working with Dave, right? I already gave Dave safety, so this would be his way of showing me that he was going to be loyal to me to kind of move forward. I knew that I had Charlie in the bag. Julia was the missing piece there. So that's why I had that conversation with Oakley, with Julia, right? Because two people coming together to collaborate that made more sense than just me saying, hey, Julia, right? Like I heard this at XYZ, right? Nobody's there to validate that story, right? So that very well could have been me. If I would not have taken Oakley in that situation, it very well could have been me being going home, because I don't think she would have believed me had Oakley not been there in that situation. So I think that was a smart move on my behalf to be like, Oakley, let's go talk to Julia right now, because right, we've got to kind of work through this. Like, you know, I knew that Sky was going to be some kind of threat, right? Like I knew that she hadn't had her moment yet, but I know that she was a social player. So like it made the most sense to kind of expound upon that, right? And to kind of touch back onto the game kind of component, right? Of kind of twisting the truth of what was there, right? So the twist kind of came right from exploiting what wasn't said, right? So what wasn't said was that, oh, Charlie and Julia are going to be the votes. But what you didn't say was that because we're all here, those are the only options, right? So I'm going to stoke that fire a little bit. I'm going to stoke that fire. I'm going to leak that information to Charlie. I'm going to leak that information to Julia. And I know that Oakley already knows the plan, so he's going to collaborate anything that I say at this point. So that was kind of like the web that I weaved. And I know I referenced the Gluck vote a little bit earlier, but for his vote, right? Like, I don't know if you guys remember, but there was something that had come up where he didn't have a vote. He had a vote at one point, right? That was something that I had caused too, right? I had churned that on that Floridian slip. I coined that, right? I'm like, oh, no, he's totally lying 100%, right? Like he has a vote. He's just totally lying about it, right? He let it slip. And I coined that. And that's what kind of stuck in with everybody is that, oh, like we don't know if he does have a vote or if he doesn't have a vote, right? So I capitalized on those partial truths to be able to kind of get myself ahead.
It was well played. I was sitting there watching that scene of you and Oakley and Julia, and I was like, this makes so much sense why she voted for Sky now. Like, I just couldn't figure it out. Because, like, even after Sky leaves and after the vote happens, Julia comes to me, and obviously because we were working together in the 6, and she comes to me and she's like so terrified. She's like, I just voted out Sky. Like, I don't know what happened. Like, please tell me everything's going to be okay. And I was like, we're good. Like, you and I are good. But I remember she just was so, like, frazzled. And so I think you used the right moment of, you found that crack because of the safety chain and because she was supposed to be safe. And then when I gave Duke or when I gave Julia the not safe, I forget what happened there, but I think I gave it to Julia and I was supposed to give it to Duke. It's because Duke and I had that conversation of, we were both feeling the same way. Duke's like, if you give me that not safe, I'm going home. And I was like, I can't have Duke go home here. And I should have realized how that was going to fall back onto Julia being like, oh, I'm on the bottom because Josh has now prioritized Duke over me, even though Julia was like one of my top allies. Like, I would have taken a bullet for her. But Korian, I guess coming back to you, you were the only one who wasn't, like, Sam and Sky, clearly they're not going to tell Sam that Sky's going, and they're not going to tell Sky's going. But you're the only other person who, you didn't have any ties to Sky really, but you weren't included in that vote. Did you know Sky was the vote there? Or, like, what was your perspective of that? Because you end up voting for Matty in this vote.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Did you?
Yes, it was a 4-3, and Julia really was the swing vote there.
I don't know. It was basically, I don't even know how to, like, go about it. I think at that point in time, I was hearing a lot that people were like, oh, you and Nia are working together. And I'm just like, I ain't never had a game conversation with her in my whole entire time I've been in this house. Like, good grief, me and the girl were just keen. But, like, I don't know. Like, I'm just going by, like, what I'm hearing. And so in the end, I really didn't care because I was safe. But, I was just like, I don't know who to go for. I felt as though, like, I was trying to gain more of a relationship with Sky in the end. Because we had, like, some conversations, like, outside of, like, discussion time and camera times, like, late at night or whatever. And we were having, like, talks and discussions, and I was just like, that's somebody I really, like, probably, like, want to start working with, like, moving forward in the game. So I think that's what, like, put, like, a more of a, like, influence on, like, who I was going to vote for, who I was not going to vote for. So sorry.
I mean, that's fair though, right? Like,
yeah,
it's in those relationships and things, right? Like, you had mentioned, like, spending more time with Sky, right, and kind of formulating that relationship. And I just want to kind of point, like, Nia and I had that same kind of that thing that happened the night before, right? That triple execution kind of went through. Or triple elimination.
Execution.
Right?
You still have the mole.
Sometimes it feels that way.
It does, yeah. So when that kind of happened, right? Like, we had that entire night to kind of chat and just kind of figure out what the plan was, right? So her and I, instead of talking game, right? Like, we talked, like, very personal things, right? Like, we talked about views and philosophies in life. Like, we talked, just about the sense of community and what that means and what that represents, right? And challenges that are faced, right? So we had a really deep conversation. So for me to kind of the next day, right, make that switch and say, like, oh, I'm sorry, Nia, like, we had this awesome conversation and we were up late chatting, but you gotta go, right? That was 100% self-preservation in that moment, right? But that's just the craziness that is Ascendance, right? Like, you can have those relationships, right? But depending on your teams and depending on the formats that are there, right, it doesn't mean anything. Like, in terms of a game sense, right? Like, you have to be able to separate the emotional kind of aspect with the contractual kind of abstract of what you're there to do. So that's the fun part of this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's definitely the point you bring up of, like, there was a lot of people I could see myself working, like, the three of you, I didn't have a hugely close game relationship with, just because we never were on the same teams. We never were voting at the same time. So it's just so crazy how, like, in another world, I could see myself working very closely with all three of you, but because we were always so far removed from each other, which I think is what makes Ascendance such a great format of, like, I loved getting to know all of you on a personal level, but then the game just, paths just don't cross. So it's a crazy format, and definitely keeps you up at night thinking what could have been.
Okay, honestly, that part.
Is there anything we kind of covered? I think most of what happened in this week's episode. Is there anything from like any of the previous weeks that you guys haven't, that you found interesting or that you didn't know before, or something that you want to talk about that from your perspectives? Because this is the first time you're, on the show getting to talk about your experiences. Was there anything that you guys remembered or saw that sort of took you by surprise, or you, want to share something like that?
I did not realize that the Purple Posse was dead. IOA on arrival from the very first night. Like, we had that conversation in the hallway, and then you immediately go into the other room and like, oh yeah, Debbie and Matty, like, or the Purple Posse. Like, I was like, what?
To be fair, that was the next day. Like, that was a full 24 hours later. But no, I legitimately. It just was the sense that I got of like Debbie was kind of not somebody I was like eyeing to work with. And so I think it just happened so casually that in my brain, I was like, oh, this was just like a haha moment of like, let's do, and then I should have realized that it was more legit in other people's brains and sort of use that as like another group of people that I was working with. But yeah, I totally just thought it was like just this like, haha, hee hee, we're all like wearing purple,
No, yeah, you needed the AJ energy, the hee hee ha ha. Or no, you didn't need it. You had that.
Yeah.
You needed more serious.
I didn't need that energy.
Yeah. Okay, speaking of alliances, so like I know we've seen a few little things here come up. Yeah, the mob, the Purple Posse, the Six. So this question to you, Jermin and Korian, was there any like groupings of people, whether like it was like an official alliance or if you had your people, like who would you say like you were working with most closely like at this point in time?
By my damn self, it looked like, because somebody on this bottom row I was supposed to be working with, but I didn't. We ain't gonna say no names or nothing like that, but they might be in the square next to me. However, things happen. No, I in this game I really wasn't as sociable as I could have been. It was like my first foray like back into the live game world after like taking a whole year off. So I was like, let me see what the vibes are giving. And I thought I had hit it off very well with Julia and Jermin. I thought I did. I thought I did. I was like, oh, we clicked up, but that didn't happen. And then Lance and I working together, roommates, and then just previous things and stuff like that. So those were like the three people I was like I felt that I was like tied to the most. But yeah, as far as like other alliances, I really wasn't like a part of them because I go to bed at 10 o'clock. Y'all can be up socializing. Y'all know one thing about me, I'm gonna go to bed. So yeah, it's downfalls and things of that nature, but you learn. But yeah, those are like the people that I was like, I felt as though like I was really like with. And then
so I have a question for you, Korian. In this last episode, right?
Oh,
you had a conversation with Lance. I think it was in the cupboard during the safety challenge, right? Where you had mentioned that you can't, Jermin's not loyal or something along those lines, right? What was going through your head during that? Like, was that strategy, or were you like, did you really think that at that point in time?
Jermin was giving me nothing. Okay, that's the point. Jermin, we were supposed to be me and Jermin, we were supposed to be working together. We were supposed to be amigos cheetahs. He wasn't paying me dust. Okay, at this point in time, he was dropping little stuff here.
On your back, I'm not going down with the shit.
Okay, baby, but you could have told me I had a target, baby. That's the point. You could at least look. They coming for you, girl.
Listen,
or you could be like, you in danger, girl. Something.
No.
Something. You could be like, girl, you in danger. Okay, and I could have took that and run with it. And I could do what I needed to do. No, see, but things happen, and I don't fault Jermin for that. Sometimes it is an individual game. Nobody wins this as a pair. So in the end, Jermin had to do what he had to do, what he felt though was best for his game. He could have been sitting beside me, but he took it, and did what he had to do.
Is it better to be safe or unsafe?
Still a question.
You could have been unsafe, but I did not do that. Now, did I?
You did.
Now,
You did.
see, I didn't do that.
And
See.
did I try to help you during that vote?
You what vote?
When I was pushing for Sam and Sky.
Oh, you know, you drop a little tidbits here and there, you know.
I had your back. Stop.
You did.
But for me, I would say that I was, depending on the pairings of the teams, that's kind of how I decided who I was going to be aligned with. And I was paired with like Charlie a lot and Julia. So those were my really, really closest allies. And I liked Lance, Korian. Yeah, I think it just depended on who I was on the team with the most. Because if I'm bonding with you the most, that's who I want to work with. I really wanted to work with Sky, but she was dangerous to me. Like I was like, okay, she's good. So I didn't think I was high on her priority list.
All right. Well, and unless anybody has like anything else that they wanted to add, I'll start to close this out. First of all, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us. You know, we try to do this every week. So like, please feel free to come back on and keep sharing your thoughts. We kind of just like, we'll keep rotating through. But yeah, always open invitation. And actually, well, tonight, which is not going to make sense when this podcast actually gets released, we get to see, well, actually, like one big thing that we didn't actually mention from this episode, but we don't have to kind of get into it. But then at the very, very end, we get the announcement that it's a battle back, which is what I'm, kind of alluding to right now, is that's the episode that's going to be airing tonight, like as we're recording this. So I just can't wait to see all that go down, because we were stuck in our, well, no, I won't, spoilers, but
I mean, we don't know that it's a spoiler.
Yeah.
We know that it's
I mean, we didn't get to
happening.
watch. We didn't get to watch. That's
Yeah.
that's
Stuck
sad.
inside and in
Yeah.
our schools and all wondering what's happening. We have no idea what's
Yeah.
happening.
So like,
I
I
will
can't
say
wait
that-
to see.
The
Can
video
we say
footage, like,
who we
of them
were
walking
rooting
out
for
the
to come
street.
back?
Yeah. Who did you want to see come back?
I'm rooting for Debbie.
Nice.
I'm honestly in that moment. I'm like, anybody but Sky can walk back through that door, because I had just, again, because people were like, Josh and Sky, they're a pair, they're a duo, and then she was gone, and I was like, finally, I can like maneuver, and I didn't have to vote her out. So I was like, okay, this is perfect. She's out of the way in terms of like the restriction that her presence was putting on my own game, and so I was like, I was ready to hit the ground running and be like, Sky's gone. I can hopefully repair some of the relationships that, I feel like I need to work on. So that was definitely going through my mind. I'm like, anybody but Sky. And I love Sky to death. I love her so much. But in the game, on a game level.
Yeah. See, I didn't know what the heck had really happened. And like Sky went. So like if Sky came back, that would have been fine by me. But if it wasn't Sky, it was AJ. I was rooting for AJ to come back, because I felt like we never really kind of got a chance to actually like play together up until that point. And so those were my two. I was rooting for Sky or AJ.
Yeah, for me, I was hoping that it was AJ or Debbie. I felt like I burned them the least kind of through all of that, right? Like during the triple elimination, right? Having kind of something going on with both of them, like, and having both Josh at that point in time and Julia that are still in the game, right? That allowed us to kind of pick up those pieces of that alliance, right? Or kind of whatever that looked like through my eyes, right? But I was really hoping that at that point, like, right, Sky didn't come back, because I just kind of set her out the door during that whole thing. So I like, if Sky walks to the door, like, I'm gonna be like sweating bullets. So like,
now that you mentioned,
I don't know.
Debbie probably would not have been good for my game to come back in that either, because she was very upset.
She would have been better
with
for
me.
mine than yours. Yeah.
When she looked at you, you had nothing to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt so bad. I was like, I'm sorry. I'm like, if I say something, I'm gonna say something that is not gonna come out the way I want it to. So I was like, I don't know, Debbie. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So it sounds like we're more so rooting for people not to come back than like, okay, we want this person back, please. We're like, anybody but.
I think at that point, the only person I didn't vote out of the game was Tim, because I think I voted Mike out, I voted Gluck out, I voted Nia out, AJ, Debbie.
Woo.
I'm like, Tim can come back because he's the only one I haven't voted out of this game yet.
All right. Well, I am very much looking forward to watching that tonight. One thing I want to shout out is my lovely Ascendance merch. If you would like some Ascendance merch, I'm going to put the link in the description below to the Teespring shop. And Nicole's always putting new stuff in there, and I know for like the alumni, she'll custom some stuff. So if you've got some ideas and you're like, I want this with the Ascendance logo, like, never know. But
Yeah, so we really appreciate you guys coming on. Like, it's such a blast for us to relive this and to get all of your perspectives and hear how you thought the game went. And so we appreciate you taking the hour or so out of your days to come and chat with us about a game that we played 6 months ago. But it's like Sam and I think are living a bit of a dream right now having this show on. So we appreciate the support from you guys, and hopefully everyone at home keeps watching our amazing season of Ascendance, and like, subscribe, follow, all the rest. So we really appreciate and love all you guys. So I thanks for coming on today.
Absolutely.
We love it.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
all right.